I am a 100-year-old human and a World War II veteran. I want to share my life and experiences with people who might be helped by them. Ask me anything. Wow, that's a long time to be alive. Now, what hasn't changed in your life? Something that you believe always has been and may always will be. Common sense. How's it like watching your children actually grow old? A great delight. What was the most tense moment of your life? When I stepped forward to get married. No kidding, just briefly, I thought I was gonna faint when the pastor asked those questions. What's a food you loved in the past that doesn't taste the same anymore? Good home fries. Laughs, I'll have to think about that. We got more acquainted with lamb instead of beef. I can say he loves his oysters, always has and always will. What's the best and worst thing about being 100 years old? Best thing, being alive, laughs. What did you do in the years after the war? Was it directly back to school or something else? Got my license in pharmacy, saw recruitment for FDA and joined them, and traveled to see how other people lived. Thanks for joining us on Reddit today. My question, have you been to Germany or Japan since the war? What were your thoughts? The wife and I have been to Germany since for vacation. I've been to Japan since in regard to FDA regulations. Just looking at their food habits, and their environment, just appreciating what they had. Most shocking thing you photographed in World War II that you did not expect? Let's not put it on what I photographed. In Normandy, of all the areas that photo planes did, was the total area that they put into pictures, that ended up in something like 10,000 total prints. My great-grandmother lived to 108 and she told the best stories about life and learning. What is one thing you'd like to share with younger generations? Just use common sense. Has reaching 10 decades given you any new insight? The world is a mess. Laughs, I may want to modify that answer later. What's one thing that you remember from your experiences that doesn't fail to make you smile? Whenever he talks about his late wife, Audrey, there is a light that illuminates his entire being. He loved her so much. She died a little after I was born, so I didn't get to know her unfortunately. His calendar in his bedroom is still on the month/year that she died. What do you know at 100 years old, that wish you knew far earlier? Answer delayed, that's a sticker. Living 100 years, what was the biggest leap of technology that you've experienced? What seemed the most unreal when it came out? On computers, it was something that took me a while to catch on to, and how to use it. Military or not, what achievement has made you happiest in life? Having an excellent family and superb friends. I recently came across a shoebox full of letters that my great-grandparents wrote to each other during World War II. Did you have anyone you were writing sweetheart letters to? For general letters, just a few people I met in the service. Air Force. For sweetheart, there was a girl in study hall every other seat in the auditorium. I liked her very much. What was the biggest change you noticed while working for the FDA for many years? How FDA regulations assured quality food, drugs, cosmetics. Is there anything from his younger days that he truly regrets doing/not doing to this day? Regret, not marrying Audrey earlier. Laughs, Audrey was his wife. Did you ever smoke tobacco? Only on specific assignments of undercover work. At medical appointments I've taken him to, for the questionnaire he's always said never. I guess it took a stranger asking to find the truth. Did you fathom ever reaching 100? Perhaps it's cliché to ask, but, what is it like reaching such a milestone? I dreamed of being able to do that, and I did it. Was the food you ate at war any good? Some was not, mainly getting used to the lamb. I heard you have a pretty cool granddaughter. Not the one in that photo. She's okay, I guess. A different one, who is clearly far superior. How does it feel to have such a cool granddaughter? Again, not that one. The other one. I froze out. Laughs, I'll work on that later. Hello. What are your favorite memories of working for the FDA? Meeting new people and seeing how the FDA law protected good people. I have two questions that I would love to hear the perspective of an aged gentleman on. 1. What was it like when you learned of the atomic bomb? This is such a huge turning point in human history that I can't help but imagine the ramifications must have felt huge. 2. Similar to question 1, what was it like when you learned that humans had walked on the moon? Both of these, the bomb and the moon, are things we take for granted now, but at the time they must have been a massive paradigm shift. Can you share your thoughts? Many thanks for your time, and for your service. 1. It was a fantastic illustration of science. He says he wasn't scared about the bomb because people did not understand what the atomic bomb was too. Very surprising illustration of science. He was in Mount Baker, Washington. He didn't watch it at the time, but the word got out, don't drive faster than 35 miles per hour, boy it took forever to get home. The state made a law change, save gasoline, and avoid accidents. After all you've been through, what motivates you to do things nowadays? Mainly my one specific granddaughter. Damn, okay, I'm a little teary-eyed, smiley face. Thank you so much for your service. Can you tell me who your favorite president was in your lifetime? Hoover. He was not very popular, but he was a good president. Just what you'd read about him, that's all. That's all you have to go on. What was his favorite plane that he got to photograph? World War II or anything afterwards? And thank you for your service, sir. P-38 fighter/photo. The fighter aircraft was used mainly in Europe area. The photo area was used to take the guns out, put in 2 or 3 sets of cameras, and the prints/negatives that were produced were 18 inches wide and 9 inches deep. Most of those photos were made around 20,000 feet, so that gives you the scale for how you want to measure it. The P-38 was used somewhat in the Pacific. The P-38 was an escort for the bombers, but it was mainly recognized as a fighter plane, but around Europe, big river there, they put 150 and 300-pound bombs and made them into bombers, because the Germans would look up, oh they're just taking photos, and kaboom. What's the earliest song you remember hearing? On music he enjoys, not modern times. He doesn't recall one specific song, but definitely enjoys classical music. What did you eat to get to 100 years old? A lot of oysters. Dear sir, and #X200B, I don't have a question really, but as a man that was in a war-torn country in my youth, Bosnia, I want to say that without people like you lift my spirits up by a huge margin. I remember being there as a kid and seeing US soldiers riding the tanks through the streets, and I would wave at them, and every single time they waved back. This is more than just being nice. This wave back made a kid like myself feel safe and more at ease in a place filled with destruction and death, and that goes a long way. And #X200B, my grandparents were in World War II as well, and that was by far the worst of the worst wars. The worst of humanity's evil side was in that war, but also the best. To have been a part of literally the world's good vs evil conflict cannot go unforgotten, and without all of us thanking you. So please, take it from me, a random Bosnian guy on the internet, we truly appreciate you and are forever grateful for you, and we literally owe you guys our lives. And #X200B, thank you, you are loved by a lot of people, please never forget that. And #X200B, as far as a question, here is one. When you came home from World War II, after greetings your family and getting rest etc. When you found yourself alone with noon around, what was the first thing you did alone? And #X200B, thank you again, I can't say it enough. And #X200B, edit, OMG, thank you guys for my first gold and award things. I'm sorry I don't know the proper terms, lol. This really made my day, thank you guys. I read this to him and he got a big smile, smiley face. As for the question, he says leave that unanswered for the moment. What is your diet like? Fave food? His diet up until being in rehab, broke his hip a couple of weeks ago, was pretty rich, would go between his two favorite restaurants every night. Rich salmon. And definitely oysters. As soon as he was out of surgery he was like, when can I get oysters? What's the best advice you can give a young adult who is unsure of where they are headed in life? Might set up on Pikes Peak and say my opinions, but Pikes Peak might be too high and the words are lost. What is your favorite movie? I don't see that many movies to know. What I do enjoy is when they do exploration of Egypt and so on, historical, and that in effect is a movie. My dad is in his 80s and says food today isn't nearly as good as it was when he grew up, quality of meat, vegetables etc. Any truth to that in your opinion? I asked him this one and he started saying something about asking the right question, and something about being in court. Here's the part I caught to type. I've seen this thing come up before and the US attorneys, or at the least those with FDA, they did not ask a question in court until they knew what the witness would testify to. There was a situation where investigators from Portland and Seattle were covering oysters, went somewhere, they were washing oysters, there was leaves of a tree floating in there. When they came back the owners were there and they talked to him. The US attorney did not want the investigator saying what the Portland person told the people, so they got the Portland inspector and testified, said he warned the people to not do it. When the owners admitted they'd been advised as such by the investigators, their attorneys from Chicago turned to the client and said, "You never told us that. Of all the years you've lived, have you had a favorite? Why?" April 19, 1919 to now. What is the key to living a long life? TBH, I'd say good genes, good healthcare, a good support system, and, obviously, oysters. Who was the most influential person you've met over your life? My dad and my mother, by the standards they held. How do you feel about how you've used your 100 years so far, and if you could go back to any time and give your past self some advice, when and what would it be? Listen carefully. Could you just give your grandfather a hug and thank him for all the wonderful things he's done and still doing? Sharing his experience with the common folk of Reddit at his age deserves a lot of respect. Smiley face, will do. Firstly, thanks for your service. What are the 3 things you learned in your life, traveling and encountering the cruelness of WW2? What are those 3 advices you would give your grandchildren, Dogther? When you see something you don't understand, then use whatever research situation you have to find out more about it and how it can help you in your life. Also, how to find a beautiful blonde wife, laughs. What kind of camera did he work with during World War II? Did photography always feel like work, or was it ever fun/a hobby? Started with Kodak box camera. Then moved to 35mm, can't remember the name. Then got a press camera, 4x5 prints. It was a fun hobby even at work. To make people realize what was involved. Certain things we did, we used blacklight crayons, and particularly we photographed with the backlight rodents, path, mice, and rats, and we can show that later how they damaged food that was in storage. I'll explain more on that later. Congrats on 100 trips around the sun. I hope there was joy in each one. Any regrets? Any advice on being happy? And are you hopeful for humanity? When your time does come, may you be surrounded by loved ones. And #X200B, edit to add, my father-in-law served in the infantry in the Philippines during World War II and experienced jungle warfare. He never spoke of it to my wife or me, but to say it was horrific. On regrets, no on happiness, make sure your facts are straight. What was the best decade? I'm not that prolific, laughs, it's hard to set one out from another, I've got to give a lot of thought to that. What is the best joke you've heard? He says he has to think about it. The man upstairs is watching out for you, taking care of you, and he hasn't decided whether he wants to bring you upstairs or not. Have you thought about doing video recording of your thoughts and experiences? He maybe hasn't, but my family and I have. My dad actually spearheaded this endeavor several years ago when he was in his mid-90s, did little interviews with him with a camera up. I've since been recording audio on my phone when we go out to eat together, or he goes into stories from his past to try and capture it. Thanks for doing this. My grandfather and grandmother from my mother's side both served in World War II when they were in their early teens as scouts, delivering packages to the resistance, including grenades, ammunition, documents, etc. It has been a few years since they passed, but I do regret not sitting down with them and just talking about stories of the past, so I appreciate you doing this, smiley face, and hashtag X200B. As for my questions, as a photographer, what do you think of smartphones nowadays, but more importantly their ability to take remarkable photos at a size significantly smaller than what you're used to? Do you still take photos? Do you ever find yourself looking at older photos, and ones you personally took? He's amazed by them, loves them a lot. He doesn't so much take photos nowadays, but would love showing off his old cameras to my sister and I. What is the biggest difference you feel in the world today vs 60 years ago? Society-wise, culture-wise, etc. Can't answer that because it has a lot of different criteria, that part is important. How did you meet your wife? I'll ask him next I see him, he will enjoy this one, I'm sure. My grandma is also 100. What does a centurion want for Christmas? What are some things that help make life easier at 100? Yay, old grandparents. My fam has gotten him upgrades to his home over the years, new computer, TV, technological stuff, but I really enjoyed getting him inexpensive light-up shoelaces, he was so shook at them. As for things that make life easier, definitely his electric stairs, he calls them his railroads, walkers, and his driver who comes twice a week. Me living with him didn't hurt either. What is the strangest and most supernatural thing you have seen in your life? Was it a ghostly thing? A UFO's thing? Something even stranger? Please share, and thank you for doing so. Leave that question for later, that's a touch one. First and foremost, as grandson of two World War II vets, thank you so much. Now that the World War II living vet numbers are dropping, what do you want most for us to pass down to future generations about what your experience? Well, I'll do that by making a reference to other questions. I guess he means reference similar questions. Thank you for watching, be sure to like and subscribe for more content every day.